Hey, Scott from Good Book Explorer coming to you today from the metropolis that we call Talmo, Georgia, a town without a stop sign or a red light, but it's a place that we call home. So you can see the caboose in the background there from Talmo, Georgia. Now, last week, or the last video, I posed really kind of a challenge that I made a boo-boo in there and left it in so that maybe someone would find it and kind of call me out on it. I'm gonna be honest with you, I left it in because I'm lazy and didn't want to do the video again. But no one caught it, so I'm gonna tell you what it was. I said in the video that it was the greeting was the first couple of verses in James. Of course, I went back now, and obviously it's only, the greeting is one verse, but now I'm going to make an excuse, which is what we do, right? A while ago, I took the book of James and took out the chapter headings, the chapter designations, and the verse designations, and just penned the letter as it would have been, just a regular letter, of course in English. And I read that, and I thought, whoa, you can really kind of tell what's going on here. This is the letter, and without the distractions of the chapter headings or the verses, you can really see the letter for what it was. So I provided you that if you'd like it, if you'd like to have that, go to goodbookexplorer.com, go to the shop, and you don't have to, you don't have to do anything in the shop. You don't have to put it in the cart. You don't have to do anything because I put it in the shop, but you just click on the download button there right on top of that free download, and PDF file will pop up and you can print that out and maybe read James without those kind of distractions of the verse and chapter headings, and it really reads like a letter. And to me, it's an easier way to read it. Try it, if it helps, great. But if you really like those chapter headings and that's just the way you're used to reading the Bible, of course, whatever, as long as we read it, it really doesn't matter. But I did want to tell you that's there if you would like it. Hey, before we get started, I'm going to do a shout out to Gage Ivy. He is one of our younger viewers who watches our videos on YouTube, and we're just so proud of him. We love him, and Gage, we want you to know that we appreciate you and want to do a shout out before we begin today. Now, we got through the greeting, the last video, and so now I want to start out where James just starts out and tells the people what they should be doing, what they should look like, and what Christians should look like. And he starts out by saying, consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, when you encounter, whenever you face trials of various kinds, some versions say of many kinds. And then he says, to finish the sentence, he says, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance, or some versions, steadfastness. And that is really counterintuitive. Consider it pure joy? Really? When bad things happen to me, I'm to consider that pure joy? But really, this breaks down pretty easily. Most of you know, I bet all of you know, someone who has went through a sickness, cancer, or whatever, and kept a smile on their face, and that is really joyful to see. How can somebody, do that? I think that's kind of where we're talking about here. My mother, she died of dementia. Just a horrible way to go. Your brain just, forgets there at the end even how to swallow. But as she's going through those stages, and we would, go to Walmart or whatever, the cashier there would say, how are you today to mother? And she had lost the ability for, kind of social conventions. And so she took that literally, and she would tell them how she was, which most of the time wasn't very good. She would share her aches and pains, and she would share her history. I've had this cancer and I've done this. And so we would kind of have to drag her away and, say, Mama, that's not really wanting to hear that. But of course, the dementia had robbed her of the ability to, to do that. And my sister and I both kind of went through the period where when you'd call her up and say, "Hey, Mama, how you doing?" And she'd say, "Did you hear Billy Bob died?" And you'd go, "Who is Billy Bob?" And it was like my second cousin up at, but I guess what I'm getting at is she had lost the ability to understand that most people just don't like the gloom and the doom. But, a lot of us with our full mental faculties are doing the same thing. We think that we need to share all those things with others and not be joyful about it, just really be down in the dumps about it. I'm sick again, or I've got 4 doctor's appointments this month, or whatever. And look, hey, I understand totally, because I've had my share of sickness, as most of you have. But I guess the point I'm making is don't let those things rob you of your joy. Because again, I've seen those people who are just very, very sick and who keep that joy in their lives. So those things that you cannot control, try to think positively about that. I think that's what James is telling us, and of course, what Jesus taught is we know the end of the story, and we know that even if I get sick and die, heaven is waiting for me. Heaven is my home, so there's joy in that. Then there's things we kind of bring on ourselves that sometimes we're not joyful about. I got a call this morning. A cow was out in Danielsville, so I had to drive to get this cow in. The neighbor was mad because the cow had destroyed some of his property, rightly so. But I got there, and someone had already got the cow up. Thank the Lord for that. But I talked to the neighbor and said, "Hey, sorry, I understand totally, but how do you remain joyful when something like that?" Well, the thing is it's resolved, and I've learned something. The cows are going to the sale Saturday, so that we won't have that problem again. So I could remain joyful knowing that, hey, this was a boo-boo, this was a mistake, but it won't happen again. So there's some joy in that. I guess what I'm trying to say is there's a learning for our whole life. And we need to be joyful of that. I've went through some things where, friends have betrayed me. Everybody's done that. I've been brokenhearted. Things have happened, maybe even in church, that you don't quite understand. Why is this happening? Or, and I'm going to really be honest with you. I've felt like, Lord, I don't, what do you want? Because I thought I was doing pretty good, but nothing is going right. And you've done that. You get down and you kind of wallow in that. But there is something about learning, and we need to be joyful of the lessons that that we're being taught. This is tough right now, but I am going to come out of this, and I need to be joyful of this, because what's happening is just as James told them, because you know in your heart that this trial, the testing of your faith, is producing something. It's producing steadfastness. It's producing perseverance in your life. You're learning how to live the Christian life. You're learning how to be joyful when it isn't really joyful. I mean, can you imagine? I fell and broke my leg, and I'm going to be on crutches for weeks. How do you be joyful for that? Well, what it is you've got a joyful attitude about that. I will get out of this cast, and that joyfulness is our Christian witness. And how powerful is that? This person who is going through horrible things, that person who is being destroyed by cancer, but they have a smile on their face. That is such a testimony to our Christianity. And that's what James is saying. Just count it joy when these things happen. Be joyful about this, because it's making you a better person. In the next video, we'll even talk about, James continues on and kind of says, hey, you're really headed toward that maturity level. So, hey, time's up. Check out the website, print the copy of James if you find that and think it'll be useful. And until next time, hey, Good Book Explorer, we're exploring God's Word and His world here in Talamo, Georgia. See you next time. Thanks, guys.